What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Japes, and in today's video we are going over Shadow Generations and restaging the game just like I did for Sonic Generations, where we pick different stages that Sonic Team didn't have representation for and put them in the game to see how would it look like and how would it fare up against the original version that we got. So for example, Shadow Generations gave us Rail Canyon for one of the stages, but what if we got a different stage from Sonic Heroes to represent that game? What would it look like? Which would be the best pick? That is what I'm going over today. But first, I have to do classic YouTube stuff. If you like the video, definitely give it a like. Comment on your thoughts on what stages Shadow Generation should have represented and had in the game. And definitely hit that subscribe button. If you like Sonic content or nerdy stuff in general, definitely hit the subscribe button. I'll be posting videos every single week. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's see what it would look like for my pick of all the stages for Shadow Generations. Okay, so before we start the video, I have to go over what I did to structure Shadow Generations. What they did was they put in 2 stages, and when you beat the 2 stages, you can progress. So in order to remedy this and kind of make it a little bit cleaner, I'm going to be taking the Sonic Generations template and structure and importing it basically to Shadow Generations. So I'm going to have an origin era that I like to call, where Shadow is aboard the Space Colony Ark, the Dreamcast era, obviously the Dreamcast games, and the modern era. There will be 1 stage for the origin era, 3 stages for the Dreamcast era, and 3 stages for the modern era. I just want to clear that up before the diagram confuses you guys. Let's start off with the origin era that I like to call it. Personally, I don't think that Space Colony Ark can be changed. I think the game starts out like that, and in order to change it, it would be to rework the entire story of Dark Beginnings and Shadow Generations in general. So Space Colony Ark is going to remain. That is going to be the only stage in the origin era. I'm not going to change it. So what would I do? How is this different? What are my ideas? I think in order to make this the definitive Space Colony Ark level, we have to include elements from all of the levels that take place on the Space Colony Ark. I know that in Shadow Generations, the game takes assets from Final Chase and Crazy Gadget, where you have the anti-gravity platforms from Crazy Gadget, where you're running alongside the walls, and then you have the anti-gravity columns that you can run up and jump off of, just like in Final Chase and Sonic Adventure 2. But I think you could add more elements from stages that take place on the Space Colony Ark. For example, Lost Colony. Lost Colony is an Eggman stage that takes place in Sonic Adventure 2, and it has Eggman going through a long since abandoned Space Colony Ark, so all the lights are out, everything is dim. I think you could take that and put it into Shadow Generations. I think there could be one quick section where everything is a little bit dark, you only see the glow of the enemy's eyes, and I think it would be really cool to get that representation in the Space Colony Ark level. Another stage that takes place aboard the Ark is Cosmic Fall from Shadow the Hedgehog 05. I think there should be a section where you are falling with debris from the Ark, and it would work really well with the new Chaos Control ability. I feel like there could be falling platforms, and Shadow has to use Chaos Control in order to stop them and jump up into higher pathways. Another stage that you could pull from is Lost Impact from Shadow the Hedgehog 05. I think that there could be a short section where Shadow mounts a loaded turret and is shooting at the artificial chaos just like in the game. It would be a fantastic callback to Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog 05. And the reason I say that it's also a callback to Sonic Adventure 2 is because in Cosmic Wall, an Eggman stage, you are on a rail and you are shooting down enemies, and having the turret section would be a callback to both Lost Impact and Cosmic Wall, in my opinion, and it would make for the perfect Space Colony Ark level, where you have assets from every level that takes place aboard the Ark, and you split it across both Act 1 and Act 2. I think this would work perfectly, and that's what I would have changed if I were to do Space Colony Ark. Alright, so like I said, the only level that's going to be in the origin era is Space Colony Ark. However, I am going to change the boss fight. For this boss fight, I had to kind of get creative. The boss fight that we got was BioLizard in Shadow Generations, and I thought that that pick made the most sense. However, I do want to say that the 3DS version of Sonic Generations actually gave us this boss fight already. Not saying that the boss fight in Shadow Generations is bad, but I would like to change it to something a little bit more different and something that I think is a little more interesting. So the Time Eater obviously throws back Shadow into the past. I think it would be perfect to have a boss battle where Shadow is running away from the gun agents and have a sequence where you finally get to play through when they invaded the Ark. You can have a plethora of gun soldiers and gun agents, and they're all attacking Shadow, trying to come for him, and he just plows through all of them. Pause. You would have to save the scientists from the rooms that they're hiding in and barricaded in, and you would have to attack the gun soldiers and stop them from killing all the scientists. And then eventually, once you do that, you get to a more traditional boss, and you're in an arena and you are fighting one of the mechs or one of the gun robots, and maybe it could be a prototype of Diablon from Shadow the Hedgehog 05. I know that Diablon is already a prototype, but maybe it's the precursor to what is going to become Diablon. But the biggest thing at the end is that Shadow is going to destroy the robot, and it is going to be revealed that it is piloted by none other than Mr. Schmitz. Do you know who Mr. Schmitz is? Probably not, but he was introduced in Sonic X, and he is actually the person that took the shot at Maria. Something that we haven't gotten answered and something that we haven't gotten tied up is that Shadow never confronts the actual killer of Maria. And this would be the perfect moment, because after this, Shadow's never going to be looking back in the past. I think this is the only moment that you can do this, where Shadow comes face to face with Maria's killer, and you know what? He doesn't forgive him, but he decides not to enact in rage, just like her killer did, and doesn't act in the savagery that made his life terrible and miserable, and he leaves Agent Schmitz there to reflect on his actions. And that would be the perfect way to tie up Shadow's trauma with everything that happened aboard the Ark. We get to play through it as a player, and then Shadow gets to tie up the loose ends and move on once again. I think that would be the ultimate boss fight, and I wish we got that in Shadow Generations. So that is my pick for the boss fight: the gun agents and Agent Schmitz. Alright, so if you're looking at the diagram, I did put in that there are 3 stages in the Origin era. Don't get confused, it's all just one stage. I'm just showing the breakdown of the elements from whichever stage that I wanted. So again, I listed Lost Colony, I listed Cosmic Fall, and I listed Lost Impact. So that's all one stage, it's just split between Act 1 and Act 2. There wasn't room to put it on the diagram or a structure like that, it looked a little weird. So I just put it in stage 1, 2, and 3. Again, it's all just one stage. Alright, moving on. We have the Dreamcast era. So the first game in the Dreamcast era where Shadow was involved is, of course, his debut of Sonic Adventure 2. So they didn't really give us a specific era to traverse through. Again, like I said, it was much more loosely structured. They did give us Radical Highway for representation of Sonic Adventure 2, but that was the last stage in the game. So in my version, my pick for this stage would be the next stage that you play after the Space Colony arc, and that would be White Jungle. I think White Jungle is superb. We definitely need some more greenery. I think Kingdom Valley was really the only lush or green environment, so it would be great to have some more representation and more diversity in Shadow's picks. Also, I don't think Radical Highway is the best level for Black Doom to transport you to. I don't really understand why they chose that of all things, of all stages.
I just think Radical Highway is so cool.
What?
I mean, you grind down the suspension cables like whoosh, and then the fighter jets come in and drop bombs like
Just so you know, White Jungle is not the level that I intend for Black Doom to transport you to. That is going to be saved for another stage that I have later. But the main reason why I picked White Jungle is because I think that this has more significance in Shadow's story than Radical Highway. Radical Highway was a lot about vengeance and revenge, and I think that at this point in time, Shadow has moved on from that, especially after the events of Shadow the Hedgehog 05 and Sonic 06. Shadow is really not that mean or aggressive person that we came to know him as in the debut of Sonic Adventure 2. He's moved on from that. So I think White Jungle represents him a lot better. in the case because White Jungle represents Shadow actually having a soft spot, and it's buried deep under that gruff exterior where he is going through the jungle in order to save Rouge. And in Sonic Adventure 2, that's when we understood that Shadow is a lot more than just this evil version of Sonic. He cares for people still, and I think this definitely is a better representation thematically for Shadow the Hedgehog. And I also think that you can add elements of Mystic Jungle from Sonic Forces. Even though I don't like Sonic Forces that much, I still think that it should be represented. And I think that you can have Shadow slide down the half pipes that are filled with water and try to traverse around different enemies and get to different pathways. Future Japes here. I did not know that Mystic Jungle and White Jungle share the same music. I was recording footage to show, and I just realized that they share the same music. So it looks like Sonic Team agrees with me, and I feel like that's dope. I feel like it would work perfectly. That solidifies my pick for sure. Like, having the same music, I think they know that it's similar, and yeah, that's pretty dope. But other than that, I think the stage in Sonic Adventure 2 was pretty short. I wish there was a little bit more to it, and I think that Shadow Generations can definitely deliver in that aspect. So that is why I chose White Jungle. Okay, moving on is my pick for Sonic Heroes. So, I have a gripe to say, because I've been on record and I've said that Sonic Heroes has some of the best level selections in the Sonic series, without a doubt, rivaling Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which had a ton of diversity. However, if I was at the board meeting in Sega, and I said, you know what stage should we bring back from Sonic Heroes? You know what the one stage it would be? Rail Canyon. I don't know why out of all the great stages like Frog Forest, Grand Metropolis, even Casino Park I would have liked to see more than Rail Canyon. Cause to me, at least, it seems like Sega just saw Rail Canyon and saw that rail in that name and was like, you know what? Yo, we gonna work with that. And they just chose to put the entire stage literally on rails. This was the one stage where I felt like it wasn't really working. I didn't really like where Shadow is mostly on rails. I like when we're platforming on the ground and we get different pathways. So I don't think that Rail Canyon was the best choice. So my pick for the representation of Sonic Heroes in Shadow Generations would be none other than Mystic Mansion. And Mystic Mansion and Hang Castle, really. I love the Halloween theme in Sonic games. I think they're always great. It's one of my favorite aesthetics. And Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion are my absolute favorites when it comes to it. Another reason why I chose Mystic Mansion and Hang Castle is because I feel like it gives you a lot of creative opportunities. For example, in Hang Castle, the whole gimmick is you flip the castle upside down and right side up. I think essentially you can make two stages, one entirely upside down and one entirely right side up. Let there be an abundance of switches for Shadow to switch off and on, and I think that you can have pathways that are faster pathways when you're upside down, and also vice versa, you could have faster pathways where it's right side up. I think you could bring back the invisible pathways with the torches, and let Shadow have the ability to completely skip over it with Chaos Control or the Doom Wings. That would be amazing. I really think that Act 1 and Act 2 can blend between both Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion, but I want specifically the 3D version or the Act 1 version to be Mystic Mansion mainly. The amount of pathways that you could take, the scale of the mansion. Like, for example, if you get into a room, let there be a pathway where if you go into the well, there's a completely unique underneath part. Or you can climb up the stairs for one section and you can, I don't know, go behind a painting or a bookshelf or a mirror. Some spooky stuff like that I think would work so well. You could also bring back the spiderweb rails, but let it definitely be cleaned up a bit more. I think that the spiderweb rails didn't really work well in Sonic Heroes because there's no real way to tell exactly where you were going to go, so your best bet is just to stay in flight formation and hope for the best, and then jump off and fly to the correct rail. I think that you can make it a lot more telegraphed, let it be fast, and let it be known to the player to have reaction time to switch to the correct rail. And I think it would work wonders. I think this would be incredible. And my last reason to bring back Mystic Mansion, I was so excited to talk about, and I'm Very happy to say it now. I think the last section in Mystic Mansion, where you have to depend on one of the characters in your team, whether it be flight formation, power formation, or speed formation, where the room turns either yellow, red, or blue respectively. I think that at this point, all of Shadow's powers could be utilized in some sort of way in this sequence. Let's say, for example, you are in the power room. I think Shadow could utilize his powerful Doom abilities, like Doom Blast, to launch black aliens across the map and teleport to them. I think you can use the Doom Spears as well in the power room, just because these represent Shadow's most powerful abilities. I think that would be incredible to see. I think in the flight room, obviously you can use the Doom Wings ability to fly across gaps. If you don't have the wings accessible, or if you change the stage to not have the Doom Wings, I think that the Doom Morph ability would also work, where you're swinging across gaps and you're launching yourself upwards. This would just be a great idea to implement. And of course, the speed section, definitely have Shadow use the Doom Surf ability, where you're riding across water extremely fast, going on dash panels, and utilize Chaos Control as well, where you're going at blistering speeds along a Chaos Control pathway. This would just be the most amazing way to showcase all of Shadow's Doom abilities in one stage. I think this idea works perfectly, and is the reason why I think Mystic Mansion should get representation for Sonic Heroes. Next in the Dreamcast era, we have Shadow the Hedgehog 05. Now, Shadow Generations gave us... They didn't give us nothing, bro. Oh my god, bro. How did they not give us anything from Shadow the Hedgehog 05, his own game, dog? Oh my lord. Yo, they actually put in Chaos Island, the worst island in Sonic Frontiers, in this game instead of a level from Shadow the Hedgehog. Bruh, oh my god, how did you fumble? I swear, when all the promo was coming out for Shadow Generations, I thought they are for sure not going to show every single level. They are definitely saving a Shadow the Hedgehog 05 level. Bruh, I could not have been more wrong. I was so upset that we didn't get any Shadow the Hedgehog love. Like, in his own game too. That's crazy work, honestly. Anyway, I am definitely going to be adding a Shadow the Hedgehog level, because why not? I don't understand why it wasn't there in the first place. This one was really hard because I think that there are a lot of different levels that you could choose. But honestly, this was a tie-up between Lava Shelter and Digital Circuit or Mad Matrix. I don't know which one I like better, honestly. I really want to say Lava Shelter, but I think that level is such a good level already. Aesthetically, we already have a lava level in my picks for Sonic Generations, and I'm trying to encompass every single aspect, both Sonic and Shadow Generation, in my level aesthetic picks. So I'm going to have to go with Mad Matrix or Digital Circuit. Obviously, we don't have those returning Doom Spike Balls that was so annoying to traverse through. Like my pick for Sonic Heroes and Sonic Generations, there's not much more I can do to convince you that this is the better level. I think that Mad Matrix is a really good level aesthetic that we haven't seen in a lot of Sonic games, and it would be really cool to bring back in Shadow Generations. Like I said, definitely double down on all the digital circuitry. Have Shadow grind on wires, loose wires that have electrical pulses. Have him have to switch back and forth between each individual rail. I think that would be awesome to implement. And I think that you could use the Doom Spears to potentially charge some things in order to either clear a path or make a path. Definitely use those light pathways. Those were awesome. Ultimately, I think this would be the better stage and the best stage to bring back. If you were expecting any of the Black Comet levels, trust me, I will follow up with this later in the video. But for now, I think that Digital Circuit and Mad Matrix is the best pick. I'm so sorry, Lava Shelter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, moving on to the boss of the Dreamcast era. Shadow Generations decided to give us Metal Overlord. Now, if you watched the Sonic Generations video, you would know how I feel about base form characters fighting characters that initially took a super form to defeat. I think that Metal Overlord is just way too powerful for base Shadow to defeat. I think it definitely brings down the power of Metal Overlord more so than it does shine a light on Shadow's power. Don't get me wrong, I think this boss fight was amazing. I think it's probably the best boss fight in the Shadow Generations portion. But there is one more character that I wish we saw in Shadow Generations, and it is my pick for the boss battle of the Dreamcast era, and that is Emerald. So we got to see a little bit of Emerald in the prelude to Shadow Generations, which was an animation called Dark Beginnings. I thought that maybe we'd see him in some capacity in the game, but it turns out that he was completely absent. We didn't really see too much of him. There was a great action sequence with Shadow and Emerald fighting. I would have loved to have gotten this in a game and actually play it for myself, especially because I never played Sonic Battle. I don't know much about his character. I would have loved to see him brought back, and Sonic Battle was a game that took place in the Dreamcast era, so I think it makes perfect sense for him to show up here as the boss battle. So that is my pick for the boss battle of the Dreamcast era. Alright, moving on is the modern era, the last era in our list. It is going to consist of games such as Sonic the Hedgehog 06, Sonic Forces, and I think that this era has a unique opportunity to make a completely original level. So I will share my ideas with that in the last stage. But for now, let's go over Sonic the Hedgehog in the modern era. Obviously, Kingdom Valley is the best pick. Like, there is no other pick to choose. I think that this was the best stage in the game. It's one of my favorite stages in the entirety of both Sonic and Shadow Generations. It is a masterpiece of a level. I love almost everything about it. So the pick that I choose would not be my pick, obviously, if I were to have gotten Kingdom Valley. Again, the challenge of this video is to see what stage I would pick if we didn't have the choices that Sonic Team made. So my pick for Sonic the Hedgehog would be Radical Train. So I already picked Flame Core for the Sonic Generations portion, and the Sonic Generations portion gave us Crisis City, and Shadow the Hedgehog gave us Kingdom Valley, as I said. Unfortunately, I think those are the best stages in the game, all three of them. I know Wave Ocean is pretty good, but I don't think that the beach theme really fits with the theme of Shadow Generations. So Radical Train was actually a pretty decent level for Shadow. There was a good amount of platforming, pretty good amount of speed, and of course the last section where you ride a motorcycle and you chase down a train to shoot it. If we got a Generations quality level, I think this stage would work a lot better if it was more fast-paced. Double down on the train aspect, especially considering that we removed Rail Canyon in our picks. I think that you can definitely have Shadow go through like a subway where he's dodging different trains or oncoming trains. He's riding on top of trains or running on top of trains. You could have Shadow use Chaos Control to stop a train from colliding with him head on, or use Chaos Spear to switch the tracks and have the trains pass you, revealing different pathways. I think there is so many different things that you can do. And of course, at the end, I think that you should definitely bring back the motorcycle for this one stage. It is too iconic to leave out, and I'm surprised that they didn't have us mount any vehicles in any of the levels in Shadow Generations. I think this is the perfect opportunity to bring back the motorcycle, his most iconic vehicle, have him chase down the train, and of course shoot it like he did in Sonic the Hedgehog 06. This time, instead of the train housing Eggman, you can see in the distance that the first cab on the train has the goal ring, so you got to shoot it down in order to stop it from getting away. I think that would be the perfect way to end this stage, and I think it would be a great stage to include in Shadow Generations. Moving on is going to be Sonic Forces. So Sonic Forces introduced episode Shadow, and I thought that it was probably the best portion of the game. Not even. I don't know why I'm lying. Shadow Generations unfortunately only consisted of 3 levels, and I don't think that Sunset Heights is really that intriguing or interesting. I personally just don't think that Act 1 of Sunset Heights was really that good. I loved Act 2. It was definitely far better than Act 1. But I think you could just scrap the entire thing in general. I really wouldn't have cared. Because at this point, we have 6 levels that are city levels. That includes Speed Highway, City Escape, Crisis City, Rooftop Run, Sunset Heights, and Radical Highway. 6 levels that are completely city themed. I really don't like that they did this. I wish they added way more diversity, especially Sunset Heights. I really don't think that it's the most aesthetically pleasing level. There's a lot of gray tones in it. I don't know. I just really don't like the pick of Sunset Heights. So how would I remedy this? I would, of course, choose a city level. Listen, Sonic Team is the one that did 6 out of the 12 levels be city. So far on my rosters for Sonic and Shadow Generations, I have not had a single city level, so this is where I'm going to put it, and that level would be Metropolitan Highway. This level aesthetically is far better than Sunset Heights in my opinion. I love the futuristic city look. I think that they can do so many things with this, especially because Metropolitan Highway wasn't really a great stage in Sonic Forces. But what was a good stage in Sonic Forces? I'll wait. Anyway, I think that Metropolitan Highway would do a much better job in place of Sunset Heights. I think you can still add the part where you're falling and you're dodging missiles and where you're dodging lasers. A lot of the... Man. There's really not much I can say, but listen, that's Sonic Forces' fault, okay? Because these levels are just not interesting at all. I'm really trying hard not to be negative about Sonic Forces, but I am spread thin, okay? All I can convince you is that it looks better. But actually, there is another reason why I picked Metropolitan Highway, and that is because it shares very similar names to 2 stages, that being Metropolis Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Grand Metropolis from Sonic Heroes. I don't think that Metropolis Zone really shares the same aesthetics or really has anything in common with Metropolitan Highway. The only thing that resembles is, like I said, the name. But it would be cool if there was like one section where you have Shadow going up a giant cog and you have to spin dash or just boost around it in order to get to a higher platform. I think that would work pretty well, and just a small callback to Metropolis Zone. But for Grand Metropolis, I mean, these 2 levels are basically identical. When Sonic Forces came out, they brought back Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant. I thought for sure that Metropolitan Highway was a clone of Grand Metropolis. Of course, that wasn't the case, but like I said, they are so similar in both level design and aesthetics that I feel like if these were 2 neighboring cities in the Sonic world, I wouldn't bat an eye. So let's include some elements of Grand Metropolis in Metropolitan Highway. I think that there could be a couple of sections where you're running along a platform that's completely made out of energy and you are just running super fast along it, rivaling Sonic Generation speed. Also, I think that you can bring back an element of Power Plant where you are inside of a giant power plant and you are running from the rising lava or rising energy. That would just be a really cool callback to both Grand Metropolis and Power Plant in Sonic Heroes. And I think it would work really well without mutating it into something that it's not. I think it could definitely very much still be Metropolitan Highway. But let's be honest, that stage definitely needs some spice anyway. So I think that this is the perfect way to shake things up and give it a little bit more diversity. And again, give something that the Sonic fans wanted to see come back. So Metropolitan Highway is going to be my pick for Sonic Forces. Okay, last but not least, as I promised, there is going to be a bonus level, and I think that this should be a completely original level. Kinda. So what I have in mind is, obviously there was a complete lack of Shadow the Hedgehog levels in Shadow Generations. I think that they should have made a Black Comet level. However, since the Black Comet technically doesn't exist anymore, and I don't think that Time Eater should bring it back, I think that we should go to the heart of the Black Arms, since this is the last time we're really going to see them, and that is Black Planet. I think that Shadow should go through this level, and it should be pretty much the exact same aesthetics as Black Comet and Final Haunt, to kind of give a throwback and a homage to those respective levels. I can just imagine the scale of the planet, where there are so many branching pathways. I know I say that a lot, but that's what makes these levels so good. The branching pathways, the epic scope of it all, and all of Shadow's abilities being used in this one stage in a flow state. I think Black Planet would be awesome if we got this. That would be incredible, and it would give us basically 2 levels for Shadow the Hedgehog. I know that there was budget and time, so I didn't expect them to do this, but I think that if they ever reworked it or gave us even more DLC than what we're getting, I think Black Planet would be so awesome, and have us as the fans get a lot more lore about the Black Arm's origin. That would be incredible, and that would be my pick for the final stage in the modern era. Okay, last but not least, we have the boss battle for the modern era. I think Mephiles was an outstanding choice. However, there is one character, and only one character, that I think works far better than Mephiles. And guess what? It comes from my most hated Sonic game of all time, Sonic Forces. It's none other than Infinite. So with Infinite, he has the opportunity to bring back even more villains from Shadow the Hedgehog's past. I think this would work perfectly if they did this. With Sonic, Infinite's clones were Shadow, Zavok, Chaos Zero, and Metal Sonic. My idea for the Phantoms that Shadow faces would be Sonic himself, since we didn't get a Sonic battle between Sonic and Shadow in Shadow Generations. Black Bull, because I think he is the most iconic boss of the Black Arms. I think Eggman could be the 3rd clone in his iconic Egg Breaker mech. And last but not least, you can have Mephiles. Is that cheating? I don't care. It's my game. Maybe you just heard all that and you are completely turned off and don't like that idea. I understand that it is 1000% fan service. But let me tell you how this would work. So Infinite is the main villain of Sonic Forces, and in episode Shadow we got to see his origin from 0 to Infinite with the power of the Phantom Ruby. It turns out that Shadow is actually the person that made him turn into Infinite, or at least inspired him to turn into Infinite, because in Sonic Forces, Shadow confronts him and defeats him and proves that he is weak. If you're talking thematic wise, this is another character that is created because of Shadow, or mirrors Shadow in some sort of way. I really love that idea in Shadow Generations, so I want to keep that theme going. So let me talk about continuity next, because I know that this probably wouldn't make sense because Infinite technically comes after the events of Sonic and Shadow Generations. Listen, the Time Eater works in mysterious ways, alright? It can bring back people from the future just as well as people from the past. As we see when Shadow goes to the Chaos Island, when firstly, he has not been in that game at all, and secondly, that is way farther in the future. That is the last game in the timeline so far. So it wouldn't really be a stretch to bring back Infinite even if he is from the future and not the past. Secondly, if Shadow fights Infinite in Shadow Generations, he would know who he is already in Sonic Forces. So my explanation for that is, well, he's wearing a mask as Infinite, and in Sonic Forces when he confronts him from the first time, he is unmasked. So it makes sense that Shadow probably wouldn't recognize him, and thematic wise, it perpetuates the idea that Shadow really does think Infinite is weak, because if he confronted him in Shadow Generations and he still doesn't remember him, that just further pushes the envelope that he really truly thinks that Infinite is weak.
I am not weak!
Okay, so now that we got the continuity out of the way, let me talk about how I think that this boss fight would work, so I can pull you back in if you guys are starting to be like, I don't really agree with that. I think that every single Phantom copy could utilize Shadow's new Doom abilities in some sort of way to defeat. So for example, you would start out running with Sonic. You would have to use Chaos Control and Doom Spears just like you did in Sonic Adventure 2, calling back to that game, to defeat that Phantom copy. Don't make it last too long. Each Phantom copy should only last about 30 seconds. Once you defeat him, Infinite reveals himself, you attack him, and then the next one comes. For Black Bull, I think that you can use the Doom Blast, where you launch Black Arms into Black Bull's eye to damage him and eventually destroy his Phantom copy. For Egg Breaker, I think that you can use the Doom Surf. You would obviously have to give Egg Breaker like a jetpack or something so he can hover across the water, but I think it would work where you are flinging debris at him on the Doom Surf, just like the Metal Sonic boss fight. And then for Mephiles, I think that you can use the Doom Morph just like his boss battle in Shadow Generations. I think that you can use the Doom Morph to quickly move to him and hit him when he is submerged in that goop. Then you can use the Doom Morph to swing up and attack him to finish him off. And I know a lot of people really love the dialogue between Mephiles and Shadow. I think that you can still have this dialogue. Let's just chalk it up to the Phantom Ruby, okay? This could be Mephiles' real conscience in the Phantom clone, talking to Shadow. Of course, Shadow's not going to know who he is, but you can still have that banter between them where Mephiles really wants to restore himself to the timeline. He's like, first I'll get out of the Phantom Ruby, and then I'll restore myself to the timeline through the Time Eater. I think it would pretty much work exactly the same, and I really think that the banter between Mephiles and Shadow is the reason why a lot of people like that boss fight to begin with, so keep it. And then once all the Phantom copies are destroyed, which should take about 2 minutes, you will have the chance to defeat Infinite himself, where he sends you to the Infinite Realm or the Phantom Realm, whatever you want to call it, and maybe have a section where he puts you into null space and you have to escape from that using chaos control. And that would be a programming feat if they did that, and it would solidify this boss fight to be the best version of Infinite we have gotten so far. So my pick for the boss battle of the modern era is Infinite. You can take me, then you should go and forget it. And after all this time, you're back for more. If you made it this far into the video, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I am going to say one more idea that I wish was in Shadow Generations as a bonus. So the final boss was obviously Black Doom. It was always going to be Black Doom, and I think that I don't want to change this. But there is one thing that I do want to change. I think throughout the story, it was really solidified that Black Doom's plan was really to power up Shadow and take control of his body. We really never got to see Black Doom even attempt this, and I think it was a huge missed opportunity. And of course, if you've heard me talk about my Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations video this far, you would know that I really don't like that base form characters can defeat characters that initially took super forms to defeat. So my proposal for the last boss battle is to have Shadow have the Doom Wings, but at the end have it where Black Doom is about to take control over his body and he merges with Shadow, and Shadow becomes a new form called Shadow Doom. In order to escape Black Doom's control of him, he would need the combined efforts of Omega, Rouge the Bat, Gerald Robotnik, and Maria. They would talk him out of it and get Black Doom out of his head, and once Black Doom is rejected by Shadow, Shadow then fights Black Doom or Devil Doom as Shadow Doom. I would imagine Shadow Doom to be a lot like the symbiote in Spider-Man, with super sharp teeth and razor sharp eyes. Definitely get rid of the tongue. I mean, we have enough fanfiction as it is. I think it should be a completely encompassed Shadow with the Doom wings and the Doom slime all over his body, basically making an entirely new super form for Shadow. That would have been the best way to end this game, and definitely give us the conclusion that we are so familiar with when we go super and we face the final boss. That would have been incredible, and how I would have changed the last boss fight of the game. Alright, that about does it. That is my complete restaging of both Sonic and Shadow Generations. If you watch these videos, thank you so much. They required so much effort and so much time, and I really appreciate you watching it. If you liked it, definitely give it a like. Please comment about what you think would make great stages in these games. I love discussing these things with people, and I really want an audience to engage with, so that would be incredible and would help the channel out a lot. And of course, the best thing you can do is subscribe. I make videos like this every week, so if you are into Sonic content like this, definitely hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notified on when I upload. But that about does it. Thank you again so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.